Hey kids, welcome to Unit 7, Lesson 3, Parameters and Return Practice. Hopefully by now you've heard me talk a little bit about parameters. And parameters, for our purposes, think of them like variables, and we can pass those variables along. If you look up here, this is a good example of it, and we're going to learn a little bit about that by creating two more different names. So we have to call the function at least two more times with two more different names. And what are we doing here? Well, we have our call right here, and it is called complement. And down here is our actual function complement. And you see it's printing off the name variable concatenated with you are the best. And if you look up here, we have a parameter on our function. Up here it says Jesse. Down here it says name. This is what's getting passed off. It's going to pull whatever the name is, and it's going to pass it along. If you remember in class, kids, and if you plan on continuing with coding, these are different parameters. The actual parameter is the name right here. The formal parameter is what it's going to be. And these can also be referred sometimes as arguments. Definitely something you see when you move on to Java and APCSA. Well, we have to add two more of these calls. And if you're a smart kid, you're probably thinking, hey, Mr. Rhodes, why don't I just go concatenate this and just go maybe Rhodes and then maybe Mr. Score. And if I hit run, what I'm probably going to get, let's put a little space in here, is I should get these three names, comma, you are the best. And that's not really what this is asking to do. As you can see, we got Jesse Rhodes Score, you are the best. What it wants it to do is print it off 3 times because that's what a parameter lets us do. This is like a blueprint. That means that we can create an object, let's say a car, and then we can produce a bunch of different cars with maybe different colors, different options, and that's what a parameter is. This is adding an array or a list. So again, I know some of my smart kids are thinking that what we want to do is we want to go to our functions. We want to call the function, and the function is called complement. We have to add a parameter, and the parameter's name, which is going to get passed. And this is where we can add any name we want. Let's do Mr. Rhodes. And then we have to do one more. And there is already one with one out. You can just hit this little arrow to add more parameters. Again, what function are we calling? Complement. Who do we want to give a complement to? Can't do Mr. Score. That wouldn't be nice. Let's do Mr. Hemery. Now when I print it off, instead of getting Jesse Rhodes Score, I should get Jesse, you are the best. Mr. Rhodes, you are the best. Mr. Hemery, you are the best. In this way, I'm reusing my function 3 different times, but I only wrote it out once. And that's what parameters really do. Well, let's see if I'm right, kids. As you can see, Jesse, you are the best. Mr. Rhodes, you're the best. Mr. Hemery, you're the best. And that's how we add 2 calls to our function using a parameter. We have a do this. Read the code from random greeting function. Finish the code for random complement function so that it randomly adds a comment from the list to the name passed through the parameter. The output of the console should look something like this. Buenos dias, Benjamin. Benjamin, your smile lights up the room. How nice is that, kids? Let's go ahead and take a look at our code here. It looks like we have a bunch of calls to some functions. And the first thing we need to do is I'll read the code for our random greeting. And it looks like our function random greeting has a parameter name. This looks like this is what's getting passed from my function, the name. We have a list here. and it is named greeting. It has good day, bonjour, buenos dias, magandang araw. My Tagalog is bad enough, kids. You don't want to hear any more of my terrible, terrible pronunciations. Down here, we have a console.log statement. It says greeting, which is our list up here. And it's a random number between 0, why 0? Well, kids, remember we index from 0 to whatever, we count 1. And good day here is in position 0. And we're going to greetings length -1. Well, greetings here, we're using the length of it. We're going -1. Why -1? Well, kids, we start counting at 0. That means this one's going to be off by 1, so -1. Then we're going to plus name. Name is the parameter being passed along. So we should get something that says, good day, Benjamin. That's pretty interesting and neat, kids. Basically, it is an RNG creator for a greeting. And now we have to finish the code for the random complement function. So it randomly adds a comment from the list to the name passed to the parameter. Here we have our random complement. Looks like we have our parameter name again. Another list, compliments, and we have a bunch of compliments here. You have incredible hair. I don't know about that one, kids. You're astonishingly smart. Your fashion sense is unmatched. Your smile lights up the room. You are uncommonly talented. And you are ridiculously funny. How nice is that? This looks exactly like this code here, kids. And to finish it, it looks like we have to add this console.log statement. But if you look up here, kids, look at the position of the name. So the name is going to have to be on the front on that. So keep that in mind as we go through. Let's add our console.log statement here. We're going to have to do an awful lot of concatenating the message here, and we're going to do name plus whatever. So let's just put our name here, and this is the parameter being passed along, the whole point of this lesson. Now we're going to do the number we want to go towards. We're going to start off at greetings. And we want the greeting number from what? We want to go from 0 to the list length. And we're going to have to go to our random number generator here. And that's going to be, well, kids, looks like I have an extra plus here. Let me do this real quick. We can always fix our issues, kids. Let's just drag this down here for a second. And then drag this up. Looks like I just have one too many pluses here, kids. Let's get rid of that now. And what's our random number going to go from? Well, we still want to go from 0 because position 0 is you have incredible hair, even though I don't like that compliment, kids. And we want to go to the end of the list. Well, why are we using the -1? Well, again, kids, we could go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 and put this in here as a 4. But then if we add something else, we'd have to come in and change that. And that kind of becomes a hassle, especially if we're doing a lot of stuff. This way we can add to our list. We never have to worry about it. So we're going to keep this 0. We're going to drag in our list over here. We're going to do complement dot length. And this time I'm just going to flip over to the text mode here. We're going to come back here. We want to just get rid of this to -1. Looks like greetings hasn't been declared. Well, kids, again, it should have been compliments. Like that. Now, if we go back to our blocks, everything's right. So make sure you're putting the right thing in. I was calling to the wrong list. It didn't have access to that, so it couldn't have got there. Now, when I hit run, kids, I should get Ben, Raj, and Esmeralda to say a random greeting, and then a random compliment. Let's see if I'm right, kids. See again. There we go. Looks like everything is changing. And we're getting the end of the list too. Again, remember the -1 so we don't have to code in a number and come back and change it. And also remember, keep track of your numbers. I think that's all code.org wanted from us. Let's move on to the next lesson. We have a do this. The program works identically to the one you just wrote, but it's been organized differently because some functions return a value instead of logging them into the console. Do this. Read the code for the program. Finish the code for the random compliment function. Use the comments and the code for random greeting to help. Well, if we come down here, looks like the same code again. And all we really have to do is rewrite what we did before. Down here, we have our random compliment and we have our random greeting for help up here. So if you look, looks like the new thing here is we have return instead of console.log. So that's going to be a little different. In this case, we're still making our RNG, but now we're just assigning it to a new variable. That's all. Instead of printing that off, we're just assigning it to a new variable. Well, then we're returning that variable. Well, that's it, kids. It's that easy. Hardest part, just going to be putting everything in the right order. Let me just go over to text real quick. This is down at the bottom. Let's just do a bunch of returns so we can move it up a little and see what we're working with. There we go. This time, this isn't a list. This is just a regular variable. So I'm just going to drag out my variable right here. And I could call it anything. This is called random greet. I'm going to call mine, you guessed it, kids, random compliments, but spelled right. And random compliments, what's that going to be equal to? Well, it's going to be equal to my greeting, but we're going to do some RNG into it, all right? I'm going to drag off my part right here. We're going to call this compliments again. I am going to put in my RNG feature. Well, that's going to go from 0 to where? Well, it's going to go to my my compliments dot length -1. This is saying, hey, you define random compliments. You're not doing anything with it. Remember, we have to do this return. We go over here to my functions. Down here to return, you can see it puts it in just like we would a regular function in a call. And all I have to do in here is just do random compliment. And now, not random compliment, random compliments. Because again, kids, you're calling the new one. Now, when I hit run, my program should look similar to how it did before. And it looks like it's working. Getting my names in there. Everything looks pretty good. And again, it is printing off different. If you look at my function, greeting and compliment here, which is being called, is printing it off so I don't have to switch it around. So it's just another neat little way of coding that in. Pretty sure we're going to have to do something like this, kids, so I hope you understand it. I think that's all we have to do for this one. Well, let's move on to the next one, kids. We have a do this or run the program and see how it works. Write the code for the month to season function using the comments to help you write the code. The output of the console should look something like this. Lenora is 15 years old and is a teenager. Lenora is born in March, which is in the winter. Note for this purposes of this level, winter is going to be these months. Spring is going to be these months, summer, those months, and fall, these months. So that's just going to be our grouping here. Well, we have to rewrite some code month to season. Let's look at our code here. We have some calls, and it looks like we have Lenora, 15 March, Tan, 3 July, Laquan, 9 October. These are our parameters here. So it looks like we have a name, an age, and a month. This is what's going to be passed on. We come down here, well, here's our function being passed. And the name's coming down, the age is coming down, and then the birth is getting passed down. Then it's getting concatenated into this, which is name is age, years old is this. So these are just getting passed down. So Lenora would be passed to here. Then we have the age to description, and then we have another parameter age. So this age is getting passed off again. And if we look down here, we have a big if, else statement. And it's basically saying, hey, if you're 1 or under, you're an infant. If you're 3 and under, you're a toddler. If you're 5 and under, you're a preschooler, 12 and under, grade schooler, 19 and under, you're a teenager. Anything else? Congratulations, you're an adult. Well, then we're going to return a description. What's description? Well, description is this variable here, and that's what you're inputting into there. So in this case, that's how the age is going. What do we have to do? Well, what they want us to do here, kids, is pretty similar to up here. Instead of a year, we're going to put a month. And then we're just going to say if it's those months. And if I remember, kids, we had these little fun and or statements. Remember those, kids? I think I could do something that says if the month equal January or February or March, the season's going to be winter, because that's what they say winter is. And then I could do the same thing for the spring, which would be July, August, September, I think. And then anything else, that's going to be summer. I think that's one way we can structure it. And then at the end of the day, like the one before, we'll return whatever that season is. I'm going to go over to text mode real quick. I just want to give me a little space here. Go back to our blocks. Again, we're going to be doing the same thing here, kids. Let's just move this down so we get a little more room. First thing I need to do, well, I need a variable. And my variable here, what should we call this? Well, let's just make it easy. Season is going to be our blank. And now we got to figure out what season it is. So we have a variable placeholder saying, hey, there's a season here to come. Well, let's just figure that out. And basically, we're going to add this if, else, if statement. So we're going to have to go to our control here, and we're going to go down to if, else, if. And you can see every time I go, I'm going to add another else if. And really, like I said, kids, I think if I put the month of January, February, and March up here, and then just say, hey, that season's winter, that should work. Going to be a little concatenating, but it shouldn't be that big of a deal. I think I need to go over to my math. Well, I think I'm just going to use a bunch of or statements here. And I'm going to say something just like I did before. If the month equal, and I think the first one's January. Kids, I know I'm going to spell a ton of these wrong. January. Or, and we'll do the month equal again, February, and kids always spell this wrong, February, I think, or the month equal March. What's a month again, kids? Well, that's the parameter being passed down. So this is whatever this spot is. And when we call a month to season, well, that's what's going to be passed. And if that happens, well, kids, we're just going to set our season to winter. And what we have to do, kids, we really have to rinse and repeat this. We're going to do the same thing down here. We're going to do our or statement, or we got to drag out a couple because, kids, if you get too ahead of this, you'll get into some problems. So this one, the next season is spring, right? So that would be April. Oops. We have to do a month again, kids. Control C, month equal April, or month. Oh, and I got this spelled wrong here because I didn't get all of it, kids. Be careful. Month equal April, May? And then the next one, I think that's one too many here. If our month parameter equals June, good month, kids. On this one, we're going to return the season as spring. Else if we are going to do the next 3 months, we're going to go back to math. We're going to do our or statement. And what month are we on now? Month equal to July. I bet you kids, I can't wait for that. Or month equal August. Or a month equal September. Spelled right. And that time, we're going to return these seasons as, you guessed it, kids, summer. Wah, 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 wah. Else if we are going to return the seasons as the fall. We don't have to code that one out. Kids, you should remember why we're doing an if-else-if statement. If we were just doing if, it could check right for one of these and be true for two. So again, that's why we're using these statements. Now, whenever month to season is called here, we can pass the month here down to this part. And just like we're getting years passed, this is getting it passed here. So kids, this parameter is just getting passed all the way down here. Now when I get run, I should get an output that looks like this. Well, let's see if I'm right, kids. Hey, there I am. 15, teenager, 3 years old, born in July, which is a toddler. And looks like we're getting an undefined here, kids. Why are we getting anything? Well, we forgot to return the answer. That's why it's undefined. It's looking for something, and we haven't returned it. So if you look, we're returning our description here. We never returned our season, kids. Turn, and this one is going to be season. Now let's reset run. There, kids. Now we're getting our seasons in there. So we have to return our variable up here. And you can see if we go up here and change this, kids, to say June. Let's reset this and do June. Now we should get in the spring because June is in the spring. And that's how we're passing our parameters along, kids. Pretty neat. I think that's all code.org wanted. Let's move on to the next one. We have to do this or run this program to see if it works. Notice that the longest word function simply returns the word unknown. Write the code for the longest word function using the comments and the code for shortest word to help. When it works correctly, this program should print the names of the longest state and dog names. Ooh, that sounds fun, kids. Let's go ahead and hit it run and see what happens. There are many states, but the one with the shortest name is Iowa. The one with the longest name is unknown. There are many dogs, but the one with the shortest name is Pug. The one with the longest name is unknown. So it looks like we have to fix that, kids. If we come up here, it looks like we're getting two pieces of information here. It looks like we're getting state names and dogs. This is getting exported in. You can pull this information from outside sources. We have two calls here. Longest, shortest, and it's states and states names and dogs names. If you see, here is the type of list, and list is our parameter. And this is what's getting passed down here. We're creating a new message. There are many types of, and types of list is getting passed along. And the message is going to be message plus, but the one with the shortest name is, and then we're getting the shortest word from the list. And then again, we're going to do message, which is again the type of list we're in. Oh, but the one with the longest name is, and then the longest word list. And down here, we have our function shortest word and list. And this is creating a new list with the variable shortest. And as long as the variable is less than the length of the index, it's going to look for whatever index we're at. And if that length of that is less than the length that's already up there, then that's going to become the new shortest one. And then rinse and repeat. We're going to keep comparing it. So basically, kids, this is a sorting problem. We're going to compare two values, whichever one is shorter. We're going to keep that one and keep moving along. That's all that's doing there, is storing that. Well, then we're going to return shortest. And down here, it looks like this is what we have to complete. Let's go ahead and go over to text mode real quick. Let's hit some returns here, kids. We go back to our blocks. Kids, we're literally doing the same thing up here, but instead of going to the list length that is a smaller, we're just going to go to the bigger one. That's it. We're just flipping this order. Everything else, kids, is going to stay the same. Let's go ahead and drag some stuff in here. We have our for loop here. And for variable I, 0, it's going to be I here. We want to go what? Well, we're still in the list, kids, because it's not the list type, it's a list word. So we're going to do the same thing, list.length. Why are we not doing -1? Well, we're not indexing it, kids. So we don't have to worry about that. We're still going to do I plus a plus. And now, if we have to go to our math function here. And if you see, this one is a less than, so we're just going to go and find the reverse one here. So that's a less than. We're going to go to the greater than, drag right there, and same thing. If the list at index I dot length is greater than whatever the longest length is. So we're going to have to create a new variable here because we have to return something, right, kids? And I think, though, what we're going to return is just longest. I think that's a good word for us. And now what we're going to do here is we're just going to compare, hey, is the current longest word length bigger or smaller than the one in the index? Well, that's it. After that, We just got to set them equal to each other. So at that point, longest is going to be equal to whatever list we're at that index. Ooh, I did forget one important thing here, kids. I was setting my list down here. I forgot to create a variable like up here to set that to, so I can figure out what it is. So longest now is going to be equal to that list we just created at whatever index. That means when I run, now I should get longest instead of undefined. Let's see if I'm right. There are many states. The one with the shortest name is Iowa. The one with the longest name is North Carolina. There are many dogs, but the one with the shortest name is Pug. The one with the longest name is... Well, kids, I'm not going to even try that. But it looks like it's working for the data. So again, all we did, we just flipped the direction it was going. And it's just looking through the list, comparing it to the values, keeping the one that is either larger or smaller. I think that's all code.org wanted. Oh, let's move on, kids. We have a do this. Try using the simple ordering app. The total with tax function has a bug. Find it and fix it. Add comments for each function using the format below. And we have a function purpose, parameter name, explanation of the parameter, and return type, description of what's returned. I want some comments, kids. I'm all right with that because you know I love commenting. Let's take a look at our code here. When the total button is clicked, we're going to output into this label whatever the total cost is. When we hit the tax button, looks like we're going to the output label, total with tax plus the total cost. So what that's doing is that's taking the total cost with the tax. We have a function total cost that is a total equal to 0. We have our loop here, and if we have our get check plus I, so this is looking through our indexes, and the total is then going to equal the total plus the number we get from cost plus I. If you come down here, we got total with tax. We have another parameter getting passed amount. We have a variable amount plus amount times 0.07, good for you in your low sales tax. And then returning something, but kids, I'm not returning anything. It just says return, and that doesn't work. I know that's wrong. So let's hit run and see what happens anyway. If check's there, we're adding 1 to that index. So total, that is 350. Whoop. We're getting our error because it's not defined, kids. So if we come down here, I know our return should be total. Now if I run, let's do something easy. 350 times 0.7. Oh, there we go. Well, that's half of it. We have to add comments to our functions, kids. And I'm going to do this by going to the text mode because it's easier to do it that way. Our function here, how do we comment? Remember, it is 2 dashes there. And this function, well, this calculates the total price of the selected, but spelled right, meal before tax. Does this take parameters? No, no parameters. And the return for this one is the total price of the meal before a tax, kids. That's for our first function. Our next one here, which is our tax one, that calculates the price after tax. So calculates the price of the selected meal after tax. We have our amount here is the original price pre-tax. And then our return is our total with tax. And here's my comments, kids. I think that's all we had to do. Pretty neat little app. Pretty simple too, kids. You could be sitting on the next $1 million idea. I think that's all code.org wanted. Let's move on to the next one. We have a do this. We have taken our code for complimenting people and turned it into an app. Read the code. Complete the update screen function following the instructions in the comments of the code. When it works, the user should see a random greeting and compliment when enter their name and click the button. Add comments to the random compliment function. Use the format shown below. They want the function, parameter type, and return type. And kids, I didn't do a very good job on this on the last lesson. Bad, Mr. Rhodes. But we'll do a little better on this lesson. We always learn. Let's look at our code here. When we hit the complement button, we're going to update screen. And remember, that's some work we have to do. Our function random greeting. This combines a random greeting in various languages with a name. The name string, the name of the person. Return string, the complete greeting that combines a random greeting with a new name. And we've seen this before, kids. We have our variable greeting and our list here and our random number generator going the length of the list. This time we're adding just a period towards it. We're returning the statement so we know what to do. We're returning whatever the variable statement is. Looks like we have to write some compliments for the random complement function here. And it has to be in this order. So let's go over to text mode, kids. I'm better at that way. I'm going to copy theirs here so I know I'm going to get it right this time. The function purpose. Well, what does this one do? This combines a random complement with a name. What's the parameter type on this? Well, that is the name. And what type is that? Well, a name is words and words are strings. Well, that's simply the name of the person. The return type we have, well, the return is a string again. And we are going to return the complete complement, combining both the name and the complement. Let's go back to blocks. Think we got that done right. Oh, we should go back here for a second, kids. We need to give ourselves some space. And what we have to do, well, we have to finish the update screen. So well, we've seen this code here above. All we have to do is do the update screen. And that isn't too bad. We have to get the user's name from the display and store it in a variable. We've done that a bunch of times, kids. We can use our variable and we are just going to get the user's name, which is name, right? And from that, we are going to get the text from the name's input right there. So all we're doing is just grabbing the name from the name input and storing it as a name. That means the name being passed along now is going to be ours. That's so nice. Create a local variable text output to store the return value of both random greeting and random complement when both are called with the user's name passed through the parameter. Well, that's not too bad. We're going to have to create another variable here. And when the variable text output local variable we had to create there. On this one, we have to create 2 parts for the greeting to be passed along. And how we're going to do that is we're going to do a little concatenating, kids. Again, we've been doing it all day. Well, there's a reason. And from this one, what do we want to do? Well, we want to get random greeting. And what parameter do we want to get? Well, we want to get the name. All I'm doing there is just pulling in from the name. Now I need to do another plus because I want a little space here, kids. So I'm just going to do one of these. And then I'm going to rinse and repeat. I'm going to call the same function. That's all I'm doing. And it's going to be, and if you want to do it this way, kids, you can just drag this in because it's the same thing. Random complement, but spelled right. And the parameter for this one is going to be the name variable that we've been using. Now, what we have to do is we have to update the text output on the screen for the output display. So we're just going to set a property, kids, because that's how we do it. So we're going to go down to set property here. And what ID are we going to do? Well, we're going to do output, right? And we're not doing with, we want to do text. And we want to do our text output. So we want to do our variable that we just created up there. This is not going to be in quotes because it's not literal, kids. And now we can set the property of this to whatever text we're getting from a text output. And that's just the random greeting function and our random complement function and our parameters being passed along. How neat is that, kids? All right, let's go ahead and give this a try here. Let's go ahead and hit run. Let's put in Mr. Rhodes and compliment me. And you can see there we are. We have our random complement. Kids, this is brightening up my day just looking at it. Pretty neat. So we can use a function inside a variable to update parts of our app. So a pretty powerful thing we learned here, kids, and I'm going to 100% bet you're going to need to know this in one of the other lessons. I think that's all code.org wanted for this one. Oh, let's move on. We have some do this. This is the mod operator, the percent sign. Reminder, here's how it works. Divide the first number by the second number. You're left with the remainder. For example, 11 divided by 2 is 5 with a remainder of 1. The answer is 1. Kids, you've seen me in class do this. If we do 11 mod 2, sometimes it's just easier to see it. The 2 is the pieces of pie. How many times can 11 go around? Well, you'll see we'll end up with a remainder of 1. Finally. And this is just like your favorite elementary math class, long division. We're just getting the remainder. This is a super important part of public key encryption, kids, and it's really the backbone of how we communicate and email with each other privately for the most part. And this is a concept that you're going to see in coding no matter what you do, especially if you go into APCSA. Java is modding everything, kids. So you should understand it. It's just a remainder. What we have to do is make some predictions here. So 5 mod 2, well, that ends up being a 1. That's their prediction right there. And then we have some spaces. So it looks like we're going to have to do some console.log statements here and make our predictions. So 2 mod 3. How often does 2 go into 3? Well, let's go back to our clock for a second. Do 2 mod 3. In this instance, we're not going to make it all the way around, are we, kids? That means our remainder is going to be 2. That means we should get a 2 as a mod there. Let's move along. Our next one, 10 mod 2. How many times is a 10 going to go into 2? Well, that's divisible evenly. In fact, this is how we usually check for even or odd numbers. We mod by 2 or 1. There's no remainder here. The answer should be 0 on this one. We have another one down here, 2 mod 4. Well, this is just like above. We're still going to remainder of 2 on it. 7 mod 1. If we go back to our mod clock, let's do 7 mod 1. Well, kids, that ain't going to happen. We can speed it up. You're going to see the answer is always going to be 0. The remainder is always going to be 0 when we mod 1. I mean, my answer is going to be 0. Let's see if I'm right, kids. 1 1 2 2 0 0 2 2 0 0. So we got our mods right. And kids, that's how I visualize it because I'm a visual kind of person. If you're a long division person, want to write it out, that's how we do mods. Hopefully both are helpful for you. I think that's it, kids. Our next one there is a Check for Understanding AP question. Hopefully you found this video helpful in solving some of these problems. I know all of these tips, tricks, and new pieces of information we learned we're going to use in the next lesson. As always, if you have any questions, kids, come see me. Otherwise, I'll see you on the next video. See you later, kids. Bye. Bye.